Hello and welcome on in, everybody. I am very happy to bring you a featured build brought to us by the one and only Nyce Gaming. There's a link to his YouTube channel down below if you guys want to see some more from him. And he is sharing with us today a heavy armor, sword and shield, great axe build. And this build does one thing that heavy armor really struggles with. It has got great mobility, 2 gap closers, access to multiple different types of haste, very good offensive pressure with the great axe, and defensive capabilities with the sword and shield. This, in my opinion, is one of the most well-rounded heavy armor brawler builds that you can play, and it should do well in a variety of different PvP situations. But the big star about this one is that because it is more mobile, it can actually be viable solo, which is kind of rare for a heavy armor PvP build in this game. So again, I want to say a huge thank you to Nyce Gaming for sharing this build with us. And of course, if you want to see more from Nyce, there's a link to his YouTube channel down below, so be sure to check him out. If any of you guys are interested in sending a build in to be featured on the channel, you can send it my way to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. And of course, if you have some awesome clips that you want to see in the top 5, this was originally where I saw this build from Nyce. You can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com as well. Alright, so let's take a quick look at a breakdown of this build. Starting off with the attribute points, Nyce has gone for 200 strength and 310 in constitution. The grit on your light and heavies has been moved to the 300 constitution point, so that is a big reason why Nyce, I think, is going for that 300 constitution, because that grit is a huge deal offensively and defensively if you're playing a heavy armor build. 200 strength is still enough damage that this build can do some pretty respectable damage, especially if you hit light armor opponents. You will cut through them pretty hard. Great Axe in particular, being a single stat scaling weapon, it actually gets pretty good damage when you don't have a ton of points in it, because it gets really severe diminishing returns at around 300 points plus. So in short, the attribute points on this build offer it a lot of defensive utility and hit points while still being able to put out good offensive pressure. Now, let's take a look at the gear that Nyce is running. He is in all heavy armor, and he is favoring the resilient, the elemental or physical aversion perk, and the freedom perks on his armor. Nyce does mention that crippling reap is really fantastic for the great axe, adding that snare, allowing you to continue that offensive pressure with it. And the sturdy energy perk on his chest piece is perfect for keeping up that stam sustain as well, especially since this build does a ton of blocking. Nyce is using the heaviest shield that he can, the tower shield, on this build, and he's using the perks of Sturdy and Sturdy Fortification mixed with Accelerating Resolve. Sturdy and Sturdy Fortification, fantastic for not only the stam sustain, but the amount of durability that you can get after blocking a few attacks. Really good for that tank and spank playstyle. And then on top of it, the Accelerated Resolve is going to add a ton of additional mobility when you use the Resolve. On top of it, that 13% additional healing goes really far on this build, because this build has a ton of different sources of incoming healing that you can pop while you're in the Accelerated Resolve, giving this build an incredible amount of durability when it pops this skill. Next up, the jewelry. Starting off with the amulet, Nyce has gone with Divine's Health and Stamina Recovery. Arguably the best defensive tank amulet that you could run for PvP in this game. Perhaps going for additional thrust resist or something could be an option here too if you want. The ring, Leeching, Hardy, and Slash Damage. Leeching and Hardy, fantastic defensive perks in general, especially Leeching in a heavy armor build is just great for that additional healing power. And then of course the Slash Damage going to affect both weapons, which is nice. And of course, that best in slot healing earring, Healthy Toast, Refreshing Toast, and Regenerating. You can't go wrong with these perks. Nyce has a lot of aversion perks on his armor with this build, so he has gone with a bit more of a rounded defensive spread in his percent reduction here, favoring that even split between onyxes and opals. The sword that Nyce is using, Refreshing Move, Lifestealing, and Enchanted. It's a name drop too, so you could actually go out and farm this weapon. The combination of Refreshing Move and Lifestealing, great defensive perks for a tanky build like this, and then Enchanted being a pretty good offensive option. Nyce does mention that he would prefer Thwarting Strikes here if he could get it. And then he's got the Gambit Rune Glass with the sword for the additional damage when his stamina is not full. And he does actually have the nature damage over time attached to this rune glass, even though he's got all the void damage on his armor. I think that's just because he maybe didn't have the rune glass that he wanted to put on there at the time. Now, taking a look at the great axe that he's using, Abyssal Attunement, Enfeebling Maelstrom, and Thwarting Strikes. Thwarting Strikes, of course, the best damage perk, I think, because of that 300 con and very, very high grit uptime that he'll have with basically all the abilities he's using on this build. The Enfeebling Maelstrom, not only is Maelstrom a nice skill in order to kind of defend yourself or put some offensive pressure in. But that weaken that it puts on is going to be a huge deal for tanking. 25% weaken, 25% damage reduction goes a really long way. And then lastly, that Abyssal Attunement. This is why I think Nyce has gone for the additional void damage on his armor. And that's just going to help push that Abyssal Attunement damage even further. But I am curious how this would stack up damage-wise versus the melee damage armor Rune Glass Gems instead. And for the ultimate, Nyce has gone with the Stalwart Heart Room of Stoneform. Not only does he get that big damage reduction, but on top of it, he's got that healing power coming in every second when he pops this ultimate. This ultimate can also get you out of a hard stun or a stagger, so it's kind of a good defensive tool in that regard as well. But when you stack it with all of the defensive damage reduction and all of the healing power that this build has, it becomes an incredibly overloaded defensive ultimate that makes this build very, very hard to kill. And here's a quick look at the masteries for this build. Starting off with Great Axe, Nyce has gone with the Charge, Reap, and of course Maelstrom. A good mix of offensive pressure and the ability to catch up and control opponents with this kind of a skill loadout. On top of it, Bloodlust on the Great Axe is going to do a lot of work, especially in heavy armor, for that additional movement speed when you're trying to chase somebody down. And taking a look at the Sword and Shield masteries, Nyce has gone with the Leap, the Shield Bash, and Defender's Resolve. Having two gap closers on this build between Leap and the Great Axe Charge is a huge deal for that mobility, especially a heavy armor build, giving this build the ability to actually catch up and hunt down those squishy light players. We already talked a lot about Defender's Resolve, but that defensive formation final passive that Nyce went for, really, really good for this build, because if you're blocking even just an opponent in front of you while someone behind you hits you, you will get that damage reduction on Defender's Resolve, and it offers a lot of group utility to this build defensively as well. Okay, let's take a look at that PvP commentary. Of course, Nyce has got a ton of fights with this build, so we get to see a lot of this build in action. So I'm going to do my best to highlight all of the good defensive moves that Nyce is making. There you see he went for the Accelerated Resolve, and then he blocked a couple of attacks before he went for that run. Now, these guys ended up missing a lot of those attacks, but that was a very good move because of how much Fortify and damage reduction he stacks when he makes that particular move. Now the enemy Fire Mage gets a little too close to Nyce here, and Nyce gets really good damage with the Great Axe in, and yeah, that guy does not respond properly. Nyce very easily takes him down. Then he turns around to the bow player that's coming here. He does hit him with the hard stun, goes for the Sword and Shield gap close, and then this is a big deal. Going for those Sword and Shield light attacks, that's going to apply that cripple at the end of the light attack on top of the slow that you get for landing those melee attacks. And you can see right away that this build does a good job slowing people down, and the Great Axe and the double gap closers, it can chase very well too. So moving on to the next clip, this is a fight where Nyce is fighting some other bruisers. And you can see they already forced him to pop his defensive ultimate, get that extra healing, and now they're putting the pressure on him. Nyce doing a great job swapping to his block as often as he can to block those big incoming attacks. There you see the explosion come in. Nyce again, keeping that block up so he can absorb that damage, even gassing out his stamina. But that was a great call, so they couldn't land that big combo on him. And now he's just being patient. So he's doing a mix of blocking when they get too close, and then he breaks a little bit of distance and he can go for his heals. And then there you see Nyce just caught on the wrong bar. Unfortunately, he ends up getting his block broken by the heavy attacks coming in from those hammers. And there they drop another gravity well on him. Now, this is the situation where we talked about earlier in the build video, where if he has his block up and players are hitting him from behind, he still gets that damage reduction bonus. So in that particular situation there, that's going to help him mitigate quite a lot of damage. And then here, Nyce, again, is just going to break a little bit of distance. The big thing you can see right away is that these Warhammer players are a lot slower than Nyce. So he could actually escape this fight if he wanted to. And these guys can't really escape from him either. He gets really good damage, though, when he goes for the spin there, switches to his Sword and Shield as they begin to put some offensive pressure, and he absorbs both of the incoming gravity wells, pulls out his ultimate as well, and then he continues to keep the pressure up on these guys. They are just hitting him with so many stuns, though. Unfortunately, Nyce just missing the hard stun on that guy. He's very low health as well, and he manages to dodge the incoming stun from the hammer there. Right away, back on top of the other guy. That guy ended up actually chugging a potion, so Nyce quickly switches to the lower health target here, and again caught in another gravity well. And the block on this build, absolutely incredible. I mean, he just shrugs off those combos like they're nothing because he can block so much damage from them. And that was a really good block on the incoming hammer stun, and he catches him with the hard stun on the counter. And now the enemy player again going for that detonation rune. Nyce blocking that incoming combo again. And he's so close to taking this other bruiser down. He's just keeping the pressure on him. He does connect with the end of the light attack chain on the sword and shield, so that's going to put that little bit of snare on him. And then he switches to his great axe here. This guy very low on health. I think he was just trying to get to his potion cooldown there. And Nyce able to tank out and survive and then turn around and get the kill on one of the bruisers. And now it's just him and the other guy here. And Nyce does a great job just reading those incoming hammer combos. Warhammer, one of the slowest weapons in the game, a very good weapon to learn to read those combos on, and that just prevents this guy from landing any kind of meaningful damage on Nyce here. He's doing a really good job with his block. Again, just absorbing that incoming attack. I think with the grit from the partial charged heavy there, he did try to get the block in time too. And now that this guy's getting a little bit lower health, Nyce switches to the great axe and just starts putting the pressure in. Goes for the reap, the enemy player just managing to dodge it in time. And that was a great block. Even on the great axe bar, he's able to absorb that incoming stun quite easily, staying on top of this guy with the sword and shield, and he's going to try to break some distance. Out comes the great axe. There's the bloodlust. That's going to let him stay on top of this guy quite easily, even with the gravity wells coming in. And now Nyce is taking a bit of pressure. He pops his ultimate, I think, to break out of that stun right away and just put the last little bit of damage into that guy to finish him off. And now he's got another bruiser that's come into the fight here, and Nyce is just going to take his time with this one. Very smart how he approaches this fight. He's doing a lot of blocking, watching for the incoming combos from the opponent. Right there, a great block on that incoming shockwave from the hammer. And Nyce just stays right on top of him. Again, just using his gap closers to stay on top, but waiting with his more powerful burst moves on the great axe until the moment comes. There you see great damage with it. He just misses the reap, but that distance, gap close right on top of him, and the sword and shield gap close just coming off cooldown as well. There was no way that guy was going to escape. Moving on to the next fight, again in OPR. Nyce taking a lot of abuse up top there, just flexing that block to stay alive. And then he drops down to the bottom, puts some healing into him, and he does have a friendly player in his group here with him. And Nyce does a really good job just playing the tank in this particular fight here. He's going to try to stun and stay on top of these guys as best as possible. And that was fantastic. The enemy player goes into the explosive rune, and Nyce just pulls him right on top of him. Takes a lot of damage from the enemy players there, but it is enough to get the kill on that guy as he's trying to do the offensive combo. And a really nice gap close there, hitting both players with it, blocking the incoming combo from the greatsword player. And again, Nyce just taking quite a bit of pressure here. I like how he's doing this, though. I feel like the enemy players are focusing on him quite a lot, and it's just because he is maintaining a good position, good aggression as well. He's not just noodling. There's some big damage on the mage there, and Nyce sees another enemy player come in, so he just goes for a little bit of a retreat. His friendly player getting pushed away. Nyce is going to try to go in and save him. Gets the pull with the great axe, jumping on top of this guy. Hit him with the spin as well. Good damage on both these players, but they end up sticking to the friendly player. And now it's just Nyce, the flamethrower guy, flamethrowing in the face. You never want to do that to sword and shield. Easy counter stun for Nyce. And he tries to follow up the rest of the combo. Unfortunately, the greatsword heavy player just spamming those heavies on Nyce. And there's the one big downside of block. If they have a heavy weapon like greatsword, great axe, or the hammer, and they start channeling those heavy attacks, it can be very hard to keep your stamina up. But Nyce just slugging it out with these guys, keeping the pressure on the mage, and he still had the resolve from his shield ready to go. So he still had a lot of good defensive utility and saves for himself. And there you see those heavy attacks taking about 30 stamina out of Nyce's stam bar. Yeah, even with all of those big powerful blocks, very, very powerful and hard to deal with. Moving on to the next fight here. Again, Nyce hanging out in OPR. He's got a bunch of players shooting at him, and he just goes for the greatsword gap close, and he's going to get a little bit of cover from these guys. I love how he crouches to avoid the ranged attack, but he gets bonked off the edge by the enemy player there, and then he just goes into holding his block. And you can see how effective that block is against projectiles. They do very little stamina damage, so Nyce can just basically tank that out very easily. I want to thank Nyce Gaming so much for sending this build in and letting me feature this guy. It is a fantastic build, and it's so cool to see Heavy Armor doing so well in this patch. So a big shout out to Nyce. Thank you so much, man. Be sure to check out this guy's YouTube channel. He's got tons of footage and more gameplay of this build if you guys want to see it. And of course, don't be shy to give him a sub. If you have an awesome build that you want to see featured on the channel, or if you have a clip that you want to see in the New World Top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. If you want to see a written guide to this build and so many more, there's a link to my website, pvpnewworld.com, down below for you. And of course, if you want to catch me live on Twitch, there's a link to my Twitch down below too. This show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. If you want to get a deal with your first purchase with them, you can with the link down below. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching. Again, a massive thank you to Nyce. Be sure to check this man's channel out. And I hope to see you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.